So all of these opportunities basically give you remix opportunities. I believe this one is already over, so is the Bridget. So let's take a look here. A couple others. Let's take a look at this one. I'm not sure what the song is, so we'll just select it. We'll audition it, and we'll see if this will be something that we'll potentially use. Now, the good thing is if you haven't already done this, I'll take you through the process of getting these files off of Endava and then getting them into Pro Tools. So if you've already done this process, good, awesome. You're on track to do really well with this project. Most of what I'm about to show you, we really should have already taken care of in the first and second week. But being that there's some new opportunities that have opened up, and for those that haven't really started their project yet, which I hope you will, you guys will go ahead and get started on this. I'm seeing a couple of you guys saying something about grades, and if you're referring to, I'm not sure exactly what assignment you guys are talking about. I'm going to assume it's probably your PTA 2s, but remember, those were just submitted last night. So yeah, you're not going to have grades for those yet because, well, they haven't been graded. So in the event you're talking about PTA 1, those have all been graded, and you should already have your grades in. In the event you don't have a grade, that means I don't have an assignment from you. So that means you have a 0 for that assignment. Yeah, you guys understand that you just submitted your PTA 2. So yeah, while there's only been basically not even a 24-hour period yet on that assignment, just understand that that hasn't been graded yet. I haven't gotten a chance to start those grades. So please be patient. Understand that there is a large class load, and there are a lot of you, and it will take some time for me to get these things graded. I make it a point to make sure that you already have these grades before you're going to submit your next assignment. So this PTA 2, I think that you guys are asking me about, you should have that graded and submitted before your next assignment. Now, in the event that it doesn't, which I make a point to make sure you guys always get them in time. But in the event you don't, just please understand, here's the catch-all. If you haven't figured out what's going on with this course so far, these PTA assignments, there is a video link in that assignment. And for those of you that have followed along, take a look. You'll notice we show you how to do each and every step in that assignment. So it really kind of gives you a catch-all in the event that you missed something throughout the week, whether you missed it via your reading assignment, whether you missed it via the included videos that go along with your reading assignments, or whether you've missed them in the lecture. We actually go through each and every step of that assignment in a video, so that if you were to watch that video once or twice and then follow along with that video, you could quite possibly, and I wouldn't recommend you ever do this, but you could quite possibly get away with doing just that bare minimum and still do really well on the assignment. So again, I highly recommend you don't just watch that one video and then try to do the assignment, because you're going to be probably just repeating what you see, which is fine. You still got to do the work, but it's not really probably teaching you the lesson. So if you guys are asking about PTA 2, just understand you guys just submitted that. And unfortunately, I just haven't had a chance to grade all of them yet. So please be patient with that. So here we are. Here's the song. I guess the song is MU from Monsters University, brand new film that I'm not even sure if this is released yet. If anybody's seen it, let me know if it's good. I happen to think the Disney-Pixar relationship is a pretty cool relationship. But nevertheless, here's the song. Let's take a look and see what we got and see if this is something we'd even be interested in. We can go and we can listen to it up top here, so let's do that. Wow, really cool. Nice rough and tumble, more of a dubstep, electro house vibe going on with this track. Pretty cool stuff. I like the really thick, rich synth lines. I see somebody made a comment on there about this not having vocals. So if you don't mind, I'm going to skip through the song. Let's see if there are any vocals. If they're not, I'm probably not going to choose this. You're more than welcome to choose this if you want. But usually in the remix process, there's a vocal, and you'll ditch everything else and keep the vocal. And in this case, if I were trying to remix this, I'd probably keep something like either the lead line or the bass line and then just replace everything else. So just keep that in mind. Let's listen to this to see if there are any vocals. Looks like there might not be. Looks like there are some distorted vocals to it. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to get the files for this song. Typically, I'd go ahead and download the files anyways, and I will archive these files. That way, if I ever want to use them in just for my own future enjoyment. Of course, you can't actually take these files in any way and try to sell them or use them in any of your own works that you plan on copywriting, because the materials are already copywritten. But let's go ahead and just take you through the process. Notice here you have to enter opportunity. You guys have 3 opportunities, which basically means there are 3 of the remixes that you get to pull the files from here for free. So when you create your account, it's a free account at davomusic.com. And when you create this account, you basically have 3 free opportunities. Outside of that, you'd actually have to pay for their account. I don't recommend you doing that. You don't need to pay for an account, especially not for this course. If you choose to pay for an account, I believe it's $50 for the year, and then you can download any of the artists that come up. If that's something you choose to do, great. But understand that there are prizes that are involved as well. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at how to get the file. So first I'm going to enter opportunity. Now I've already got a paid account, but if you don't have a paid account, this would actually take away one of your opportunities as soon as you click enter opportunity. So we enter opportunity. Here's a bunch of legal jargon for our scum-sucking lawyers, just basically saying they're going to sue your pants off if you use this in any way and try to sell these works. So go ahead and accept and continue. All right. Now notice that my enter opportunity has changed to submit your track. Now, if I leave this page in any way, I'm not going to get these files. So once you have entered the opportunity and agreed that you don't want to get sued by a large legal team, please make sure you do not leave this page. Now, we could download individual stems, but I'm going to go ahead and download all the stems. You'll notice my download procedure has started. If I take a look at my download helper here, you can see that the files are now downloading. They actually add some other information to this file as well. I'll end up going back and changing that information, and I'm going to show you that here in a moment. So what is the information you want to add to the file? Well, important things you're going to need to know is you're going to need to know what is the tempo and then what's the key signature of the song. So if you go into FAQ, which stands for Frequently Asked Questions, this will give you that information. Let's see here. Here we go. Down here, what tempo is Roar? I guess that's the name of the song, is Roar. Roar is in the key of G minor at 125 beats per minute. Cool. So I kind of need to know that information, so I'm going to add that to the file. Looks like the file is almost done downloading. We'll let it continue on. I'm going to go back and add the information to that file and show you where I store it, and then I'm actually going to cruise back and look at some of the other opportunities, because I've noticed there's some other ones up as well. What I'd really like to do is I'd really like to find something that has a vocal in it so I can kind of show you guys the traditional remix process. That way you'll have a better understanding of what's really going on. Cool. Files are almost downloaded now. Once they're downloaded, they've downloaded to my downloads folder. Let's go take a look at my downloads folder. And you can see here's the files. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do the whole renaming process. We don't need the premium part there. I'll capitalize monsters. Get rid of any spaces or dashes. Monster University. Use that one there. And the song is called Roar. Excellent. And then the rest of the stuff I don't need, but we want to add in the BPM, or beats per minute, which basically stands for the tempo. It's the beats that are going to happen over a period of a minute. So BPM is, what was that, 125 beats per minute? And then the key signature, I believe, was G minor. So let's take a look at that. Cool. Now I've got the files. Now I want to show you where I go and archive these files. I've gone ahead and created a folder inside of my music folder. I tell you what, let's actually, for right now, let's hide Pro Tools. I'll throw these on my desktop. Nice, convenient location to get to them. So from my desktop, I go into my music folder. I've already created an artist remix file. So this is where these are going to get stored. You can see I've started to collect quite a number of different artists. Even if I don't use the file, since I already have a paid account, I go ahead and download them. That way, if there's something that inspires me, like I might want to go back in at some point and solo out and listen to how they created that bass line. It'll give me an idea of how I'd want to reduplicate that sound, should I want to try to do something in my own production. Okay, cool. Just reading some of your comments there. Let's take a look. Let's go back and actually see what other files are available to us, because there's quite a number of them that popped up. Now, if you've already picked your song, good. You're good to go. So let's see what else we got here as far as opportunities. We've already seen Roar. I haven't heard this yet, so let's take a look at this. Let's listen to the song real quick. So the name of the artist is Shy Kids X Ryan. Alright, it looks like this actual track doesn't include vocals as well. Again, probably something I won't use, because again, I wanted to kind of show you guys the traditional method. Notice I went ahead and downloaded them. Be cautious again on downloading these files. Remember, you only have 3 opportunities, so should you choose these, you're going to give up an opportunity. Again, I have a full paid account, so I can go through and download at my own leisure. Cool sounding song. Sounded like it started off a little Daft Punk, and then some Skrillex came in. Still very cool production. Let's take a look at this. Remix Zed's Dead to Play. Let's take a listen. Looks like it's another track that doesn't actually have vocals. Again, I'm just going to archive the files for now, but let's go back and see if we can find something that actually does have vocals. I'll download the stems for now. That's the cool thing about actually having a paid account. If you find that you're going to want to be a remix artist, these are excellent tools to help you with your chops. That's typically why I go ahead and just download them. That way I've got them for later. Submit original music. Now, anytime you see something that says submit original music, that's not what really the project is intending for a final project, so you want to stay away from that. Oops. It looks like that's all we've got as far as files. So if all these files don't have vocals, then unfortunately, you're more than welcome to use these for your final project. But I'm going to stick with what we were working on last week, only because we have vocals to work with. And I want to show you guys some really cool stuff involving vocals. So this gave you an idea, at least, if you haven't got it started, which hopefully you have, hint, hint, wink, wink. Hopefully you've already done this process, but now you see where you're going to want to go get your files and how that process works via Endava. Since I've already downloaded these files, notice if I go back and try to download these files, notice I can't. You guys just saw me download the files, but now it's expecting me to submit my track. So here's the quandary that you'll get stuck in if you're not careful. So if you find a song you want to work on and you enter the opportunity, make sure you download the files immediately. Otherwise, once you go back to the page, the files are no longer available for you. If I had to take a guess on why they do it the way they do, I would imagine they're trying to keep their intellectual property rights secure, and knowing that I downloaded it, they're hoping that probably I won't share it, or I can't go back to get the files again to try to share them with other people. All right, cool. So I showed you that end of it. We've gotten through Endava, which got us up to speed on where to go to get our files. I already know you guys probably are familiar with importing, so we're not going to cover that, but I do want to show you some other files that we're going to use this evening and some files that you guys saw me use last week if you guys were hanging out last week. So if you navigate to your Avid page and you log into your account, it'd be the same account that you had that you used to register your software. You can see mine's already auto-filling. Interesting, this page has changed slightly. Okay, cool. Looks like they did a little updates over the weekend. If you go to download and activate my products. Hang on a second, this is slightly different. Let's just take a look here. Interesting. Let's see here. See, it's for us. Oh, here we go. This is what we want to look for. View my product details. This is going to show you what you already have currently registered. It'll also be the location where you want to go to get the files that we're going to use. I'm going to show you guys where you can go to get basically an 8.5 gig library. If you look here where your registered software is, you look underneath downloads, you'll see you've got all these little links here. Now, I'm not going to spend any time downloading these links because I've already got them. So you can find them here. In the event that you have your original software installation disks, they actually come with those disks as well. And that would be your fastest method to actually get these files because you can just simply rip them off of the CD or included DVD and get these files. If you can't locate those disks anymore, here's your second opportunity to get 8.5 gigs worth of loop material that you can use for your project. So once I have these downloaded, let me show you where I store these. So remember, I keep everything in my music folder that deals with music. We see I've got a folder up top here that says artist and remix files. That's where I store my files that you saw me download earlier. It's up top here. I've created a folder where I save all my Pro Tools sessions to. And then I have a separate folder where all my sounds and samples are located. So if we take a look inside of my sounds and samples, I created a folder called Avid Materials. Here's all those loop libraries that you just saw me point to. And this is the materials that you'll see me working with in today's project. So really, really cool. The cool thing about this is, remember, the project just gave us the tempo information, and it also gave us the key information. So if I wanted to find some form of a bass line to work within my song, we can find here we have synth bass, and notice attached to the end of each of these files, it actually gives you key information. So why am I giving you these files? Well, I understand, number one, that not everyone is a trained musician that's taking this class. So, maybe trying to create your own bass line might be difficult, or maybe you want to do that. In the event that you find it challenging, notice here, all we have to know is the key information about the song. And we do have tempo information, but we could almost ignore that due to some other things that we could use inside of Pro Tools. So you've got tempo at the beginning, as well as key information. And this is the stuff we're going to be using today. So just trying to show you the materials that will be used to construct this project. So let's hop back over into the project and see what we've got so far. You guys heard me playing this at the beginning of this evening's, when I was trying to get started this evening. You guys heard me play this to just basically get everything up and running. Last time we checked out, we were dealing with memory locations. Notice if I click on any of these memory locations, it'll take me to that distance or that location. You can see up top in my ruler view, it's going to take me directly to those locations. So in the event that I was actually playing Pro Tools back, you can play Pro Tools back from that location. Notice I can quickly jump to locations. You guys are already familiar with how to create memory locations, how to delete them, and how to update them, because that was part of last week's PTA 2 assignment. Cool. Now, I've got some drums going, and I don't know if you guys were hanging out last week, but I noticed that there was one drum part that I really, really liked, and that was something that I ran across by accident. So I'm going to do some manipulation with this loop, and we're going to have some fun with this loop. We've got the several loops going on here. So let me drag this big loop down here. And I actually want you guys to hear the transition between these loops so you can hear the difference in this one large drum loop here. And I'll give you an idea of what I'm going for. I really think this is a nice beefy little loop that could probably be used in multiple parts of the song. So let me let you hear it. That way you know what it sounds like. Nice big beat, really, really cool sound. Probably want to end up using that in multiple parts of the songs. Probably, maybe, someone last week mentioned that I probably should drop that into the bridge. That might not be a bad idea. So notice with my memory locations, I've already gone ahead and defined where the bridge is. So if that's what I wanted to do, if I want to drop it into the bridge section, we'll just simply slide it over. And notice I'm looking at my memory location here that shows me where the bridge is at. And it gives me a span between the bridge and where the verse comes up. So if that's the case, then we can just simply duplicate that several times. And then I'll take away the drums that would be offending those drums. That way we don't have drums on top of drums. And now we've got that big beat happening through the bridge section. Let's take a quick listen so you can get an idea of what it sounds like. And again, we're basically focusing on this large loop at the bottom. In a moment, I'm going to go grab some more loops. We're probably going to go try and grab a bass line and get some other cool stuff going within the song, but just want to get you guys up to speed with what we're going to be doing with these loops. I thought that worked out really, really nice. The cool thing about it is notice in these other verses, like when we go into verse 3, if we had that big beat happening over top of the vocals of the verse itself, the verses are telling the story, so we would potentially be stepping on the storytelling of the song. So using that big beat in the bridge of the song was really nice because you basically just had a little scat rhythm going on, a little vocal scat. So it didn't really take away from the performance. And if you notice, it just fit right in. And the reason it fit in so well is because we went ahead and created those memory locations. These are going to be really beneficial to help us determine where things should go. Now that I'm done with these drums, let me do this. Let's go ahead and do a save as version. Notice I'm already in V2, but let's create a V3, and that way we can create a backup point. Should I really mess things up, I'll be able to go back to version 2. So another good example of why you would want to do save as versions. So we'll do a save as. Notice I'm not doing save copy in, I'm doing a save as. And when I do this save as, I also want you to pay attention to what happens here to the name of the older session. That older session is going to go away and will be brought into our new saved as version. Save as, instead of V2, we'll call it V3. Cool, and now notice I'm directly in my new saved as version. Now again, should I totally jack this whole session up, I've got a backing up point I can go back to my V2. Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about here. You may remember from week 1, we talked briefly about, we'll go to music. We talked briefly about having multiple session files in a session folder. Where is this? So here is the song we're working on, Egyptian Overtime. And notice that I have multiple session files in here, but I only have one audio files folder. So this session file is remembering where all of my edits were, how the arrangement of my audio was, all my pan, volume, any mix positions, those are all stored within the session file. So it's going to remember any of the edits that I've done. But notice it uses the same source media, or the same source audio files for this session. Cool. Just a quick refresher of what's going on here. All right. I kind of like the drums the way they are. There's a little bit more work we could probably do to them, but today I kind of want to get us into some MIDI. So I want to show you some things that we're going to end up using. So let's go ahead and we can get rid of our click track. Our drums are already nice and solid. We know they're following the click, so we can get rid of this. So we'll delete this track. Oh, good. William has a very good question. William said, so memories don't save the audio. Yeah, memory locations are basically just saving a position, a marker for you to view sections of the song. And notice when I do this, it maps out the song for me so that, hang on one second, I'm going to just show you the entire session. It maps it out so that I can quickly and easily see where sections of the songs are at. This gives me a visual cue to where I would potentially want to drop things. Cool. We don't really need the click track anymore because we have our drum serving as the tempo and the rhythm. And since we already have our original our drums, we can get rid of the original drums. So we'll delete this track too. And now I'm left with the keyboard parts, the bass line, and the vocals. By the end of today, I want to completely have this bass line gone. Now, one thing I would start doing right away is creating my own bass line. And the reason why is this bass line is really, really, really easy. If I were to solo this out and just take a listen to just the bass line, I believe there's 4 notes to the bass line total. So even if I'm not a keyboard player, I could find these bass notes. Let's solo it out and listen to it. Yeah, I'm not sure if you guys are going to be able to hear that. Those are really, really low sub frequencies. And I don't know if that's going to translate very well through the microphone. There's do, do, do. So that's 3 notes. And I believe it just repeats the entire way through. So what we could do is, what I'll do so that you guys can actually hear what I'm doing is I'm actually going to play the bass line in a slightly higher octave. But that way you guys can actually hear it, and then I'll end up transposing it down into these sub-frequencies, but I actually want you guys to be able to hear it. William had a good idea changing the EQ. Unfortunately, EQ is not going to be able to make this pop out and go through my little tiny mono speaker, which is what you guys are hearing me through on my Mac. I'm playing full-blown, full-range studio monitors with a sub, and most of the frequencies that we're hearing are going to be sub-frequencies. In fact, when I hit play, I was looking at my meter. I've got a meter via GoToTraining, and it barely registered anything, and that lets me know that you guys aren't going to be able to hear it. So let's hide all tracks, and I'll show you how to mimic this bass line, and then maybe we'll go to try to find a different bass line. But I just want to give you guys some options, and since we're dealing with MIDI today, this will be a perfect opportunity to show you guys how this whole MIDI deal works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off the old school way. I'm going to hide all tracks for right now, flip around to our mix window, and let me do one other thing while we're here. Let's get KeyCaster going, so anything I do key-wise, you guys will be able to see. So we'll launch old KeyCaster. That way, any key commands I do, you guys will be able to see them. Awesome. Now you guys can see any of the key commands I do. So to get started with MIDI, let me show you the old school way of doing things. And why I say it's the old school way, I think it'll make sense once I show you the new school way, but let me start off by showing you the old school way, and there are multiple reasons on why I'm going to show you the old way. Number one, if I show you the old school way, it's going to make sense once I start showing you some new principles. Also, you may receive sessions from people that are using older versions of Pro Tools that don't have some of these newer capabilities. So let's show you the old school method first. The old school method would be you create a MIDI track, Shift Command N, and I'm just using Command and my up and down arrows to go create a MIDI track. Cool. Now we have MIDI, but we know MIDI's not audio. So if I want to trigger a virtual instrument, I actually need to set up an aux track. Shift Command N, I'll create a stereo aux track. And then we need to go find a virtual instrument to use. So let me go pull up one that I know all you guys have, because this comes standard with Pro Tools. We'll go down to Instruments, and I'm going to use this thing called Vacuum. Now, the cool thing about Vacuum is it basically replicates what an analog synthesizer would do for you if you had a real full-blown analog keyboard. In other words, there's no pianos in here, there's no French horns, no timpanis, it's all synthesized sounds. You do have another plugin called Expand, which would give you more of those natural sounds, but this is going to be all just basic meat and potatoes synthesis. I'm not going to really dive into synthesis, but I just want to show you guys how to use this. So, of course, if we click on the keys, you can see that we're hearing sound. But if I hit my keyboard, we're not hearing anything. And that's because I don't actually have this routed yet. To get this routed, we actually need to set up the output and tell it what it is that we need to trigger. So that when I hit the keys are actually going to be sent via Pro Tools and routed out to tell Pro Tools what it needs to be triggering. So hitting my keyboard right now does nothing because I don't have it routed to anything. We need to route it out of the output. So remember, MIDI information is not audio. It's information to tell an instrument to trigger. So we'll go and we'll tell it, hey, we want vacuum to be triggered. That's the output there. We'll record on the track. Now I can play my keyboard and you'll hear the sounds. Cool. Now, I could start off with the sound that we're using right here, but it's going to kind of get annoying for a bass sound. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at our factory default for sounds. Now, I showed you the old school way. I'm using 2 different tracks. Here in just a little bit, I'm actually going to show you how to do the same thing, but only utilize 1 track. But before we do that, let's get a quick explanation for what's going on. On this MIDI track, we already know MIDI's not audio. This is just controller information so that when I hit a key, there's a MIDI note that's being sent out of the output here to go trigger this virtual instrument. So the sound is actually coming from this virtual instrument on the aux track. So while MIDI tracks are not audio, you still need a track that can contain or pass audio through, and that's what the aux track is doing for us. Let's take a look, and under our categories here, we've got bass sounds. Cool. So once I'm in the bass sound range, then I can actually use my plus minus key here to just advance to the next patch. Cool. So you just rotate through till you find a patch. So we'll go ahead and we'll use this patch for right now. I'm probably not going to stick with this patch, but I'll show you some other creative uses on why I might start off with a certain patch and then switch to another patch. One of the reasons is for right now, I need you guys to be able to hear what it is I'm doing. And if I'm using really low sub frequencies, you may not actually be able to hear that. I'm not really sure. So let's go ahead and let's go mimic this same pattern. So basically, I have to find the same note that's being used in the bass line. So let's show off the bass line. So here is that first bass line that comes in, and I'm pretty sure we'll need to go back through and listen to it, but I think once I set up the bass line here, I think it repeats throughout the entire song. Again, we'll go back and listen to it to make sure, but let's solo this out. We're going to solo each of these pieces here so we can hear just this. So here's my first note. So it's there's our bass line. Those are the 3 notes that are used. So now I'm going to attempt to play this end, but quite honestly, I know I'm not going to do that great of a job, and that's okay. We're going to go through, we'll patch it up here. Nobody's going to hear my mistakes on my final composition. So no harm, no foul. We'll just play this one by ear. Let's pull up the transport, Command 1. In the transport, you have a couple cool functions that you may not be aware of. One of them is this little icon here. Notice that it has a pause sign, and it also has our little friend 5-pin DIN. 5-pin DIN meaning the end of a MIDI cable, right? Yeah, it shows 5 little pins. If you were to look at the end of a MIDI cable, that's what it would look like. So it has a pause or a wait note and then a MIDI cable. This is called wait for note. What this will do is Pro Tools is going to wait until it sees me play a note, and then it will start the recording process. So I won't have to have any pre-roll set up as long as I know the original note. And all I have to do is hit that note. Once I start the recording process, it'll automatically start recording for me. So my 3 notes. Cool. So we'll go ahead and we'll set this up. I'll set it up to record. Notice Pro Tools is sitting there waiting patiently for me. So as soon as I hit a note, we'll see the recording start. And I flailed the notes entirely. In fact, I totally missed one, but that's all right. I'm going to show you how to actually fix this up so that nobody's going to be the wiser once we're done. So you can see the MIDI information I recorded in. I recorded 2 notes. All right, not a big deal. But what we're going to do is we need to actually edit these notes and maybe even throw in some new notes because I obviously missed a note. There are 3 notes there. We only see 2. Pro Tools defaults to showing you MIDI information in your clips or regions view. And the reason for this is that way if I want to copy this information, just like your audio regions, it's easy to copy. But to edit individual notes, this isn't the view you want to be in. You want to go over to your playlist view and change over to notes. Cool. Now I can see my notes a little bit more clearly. And now if I change myself to a grid that would allow me to snap these notes, then let's see, something like 8 notes. That looks good. And if we play this back, I'm going to actually mute this part. So I can see a note goes here. I'm going to extend the length here. So that's my note that I'm going to be using there. The first note I did was fine. Oops. First note's fine. Second note, I'm actually just going to drag this because the note actually went higher. So going to option drag it, which will copy it. And I'm actually just going to delete this note. I can see where it belongs, or what the heck, and we'll extend the length of the note. And I believe that is the bass line right there, 3 notes. And it just repeats throughout the song. I'm going to go ahead and play back the rest of the bass line just to make sure that it does repeat for this one section, and then all I have to do is basically duplicate it. So okay, there's a small roll off at the end here, but what I'm going to do is basically just duplicate. So there we go, and that's that. I can turn this into regions because if the bass is the same way all the way through the song, then that would allow me to just basically paste this into the next sections. But before I do that, let's actually listen in and make sure that I've got the correct bass. Same bass there. That means I'm just going to copy and paste it. I'm just listening along. Same thing, copy and drag. I think it's pretty safe to say if we just take a look at the repetition in the waveform itself, if I just look at what's happening here at the tail of each of these, and if we scroll along, it looks like the same thing's happening throughout the entire song. So there you go, we have our bass line. But let me show you what we're going to do. I'm just going to copy this out. So I'm basically replicating exactly what they have. I'm just option dragging, and because I changed my grid resolution to 1 bar increments, if I option drag, which copies it, it allows me to quickly copy and paste out, stenciling out what I see as the original song and using that as my guide track, or the original bass line. And in cases like this, if we've got 3 of them, well, this will probably speed up the process if I just option drag 3 at once. There you go. Now we've got our bass line for the entire song. How hard was that? We just got the entire bass line. What I want to show you what I like to do, though, is I actually like to take the patch that we're currently using, so we no longer need the original bass. I'm going to just mute it for right now. And I'm just going to listen to this original patch, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to start changing the patch. We already have the MIDI pattern for the exact bass line that was the original, but now I'm just going to roll through and experiment with new patches. This is something I do very, very common. In fact, sometimes I'll go back through even after I've been working on a song. Sometimes I'll feel like the bass doesn't sit right, and I'll just try switching different patches. And 9 times out of 10, you'd really be surprised. You'll stumble across a happy accident, something that happens to work in the song better than what your original judgment was. So we can see the pattern there. Let's take a look at our mixer view. We'll pull up the vacuum, and I'm just going to hit my plus and minus while the bass is playing. Oh, check that out. It looks like I just heard that I made an error. I made an error on every single one of these. That very last note needs to go down a half step. Before I was listening to it with the actual music, and I wasn't able to hear that. So this note right here. All right, cool. I'll switch it back into our clips view. And since these are all little threesies, we can see 1, 2, 3. It'll be a lot easier just to copy and paste if we do them in thirds. So there's that one. Copy these guys, option drag. And because I'm in grid mode, it's just simply going to lock right what it needs to be. And the cool thing too is I already got those markers up top. They kind of show me as a good guide for where I want to be. Excellent. So let's play this through and audition the different patches here. Not bad. That's kind of cool. I'm going to try that out and let's actually listen to it in context with the music. I think I'm going to have to bring the cutoff down a little bit. Cutoff is one of the main parameters that you'll adjust usually on a synth. So I'll show you what we're talking about. Now I'm going to go ahead and listen to this in context of the song and see how it sounds with my drums that I've got going. Like never before. And let's see what we got. All right, cool. I'm pretty fine with that. I like how it's a little aggressive. We already got a raga chant going on in the background. Give it a little edge to it. Nice beefy edgy sound. So there's vacuum. I want to show you another way of dealing with MIDI, and let's go ahead and let's name this too, so we know what this is. We'll call this G bass or growl bass. G. And you'll notice that anytime you try to name a track, so if I want to name both the MIDI track and the aux track, it's actually not going to let me name it the same thing. So when I go to name this track, if I hit OK, it's going to tell me I already have a track named that way. So what I typically will do is I'll just make one uppercase and the other one lowercase. So growl bass. And that way they still have the same name. It's going to be easy for me to see what they are. And since we're already kind of getting into organizing what we have going on, I want to show you something a little bit about organization. These are all loops. Here's our big bad beat that we put as the bridge. Here's our intro loop in loops A and loops B. I'm going to go ahead and color these. That way, whenever I look at them in the mixer, I know what they are. Let me show you how to do that. If you go up to your Windows menu, and if you go down to Color Palette, you'll see here it gives you a color palette that's going to allow you to change the actual track colors. So let's switch this from being the clips in the track to actually being the tracks themselves. And I like to make all my bass like all my percussion a darker color, something like a brown or something that gives it a darker color. The vocals, I almost always, notice all I have to do to change the color is you select the track name. I almost always like my vocals to be bright yellow because the vocal track is going to be something we're going to work on with some more MIDI as well tonight. So that's going to jump right out of this. Bass lines, you can pick whatever color you want. In fact, you can pick whatever colors you like, period. I'm just showing you things that I like to do. Usually like to make my bass lines a little red. Notice you can change the saturation or how rich these guys are. Also, the opacity as well, or brightness. So you can make these really pop out. In fact, if you really get inventive, you can make it look more like a package of Juicy Fruit. All right. All right. So let's actually hone in on these keyboard parts. The cool thing about this song is really simple. If we actually solo out and listen to the keyboard parts, it sounds like I have just another 3 notes going on in this as well. There's a little twinkle that's going on at the beginning of the song. We'll solo it out so I can let you hear what that is. I'm probably going to leave that off for a new sound, but I'll just let you hear what I'm referring to. Kind of that music box sound, but there's some stabs that come in about here. It's 3 notes. Dun, dun, dun. So that's going to be easy to replicate. I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to get the stabs down for right now. So what I'm going to do is instead of using both a MIDI and an audio track, I'm actually going to use one track type, and that's called an instrument track. And you'll see why here real quickly, why I intentionally held off on showing you this new school method. Now, this has been around since version 8 of Pro Tools. So it's not a brand new feature, but if you've been on an older version of Pro Tools, you had to do it the old school way that I showed earlier. So this time we're going to use just an instrument track. Shift Command N to create a new track. We'll create a stereo instrument track. And this instrument track, this is going to get interesting because the instrument track actually is a MIDI track and an aux track combined as one track. So that lets you get an idea of what it is we're actually looking at. It actually is 2 tracks convolved as one. Remember, in the past we said MIDI's not audio. Well, on this particular track, we're dealing with both MIDI and audio on the same track. Hence the reason I showed you guys the old school way, to let you guys see the difference between the two, because once you start putting them together, if you aren't familiar with the fact that MIDI's not audio, then when you start having audio happen on a track that does have MIDI, this could be kind of confusing. So I'm going to hide my sends for right now, only because I want to be able to show off my inserts. So to do that in my mix window, if we go down here, we can check off the items we do or don't want to see. We'll get rid of delay compensation for right now. So don't really need to see any sends because we haven't done anything with those so far. We're going to get there, but so far we haven't. Now I do want to see my instruments, because we're going to start using these instruments, and I want you to see how this works. So on the insert, by the way, understand that I know Logic, for all your virtual instruments, it uses the input of the track to instantiate your plugin. All plugins in Pro Tools will always go on inserts, whether they're virtual instruments, they're compressors or gates, it doesn't matter. All of your plugins are going to end up on inserts. So let's go ahead and let's go to use a plugin. Let's use Expand. This comes with every single system as well, and this is a really cool little plugin. So Expand is a great little meat and potatoes plugin. What do I mean by meat and potatoes? It gives you a lot of sounds. The vacuum that I pulled up earlier is only synthesis, whereas this will actually allow us to have natural sounds as well. Now, I saw that that was more of a stab sound, but if you take a look at the categories here, look, you've got things like action pads, synth brass, acoustic pianos, mallets and bells. So if I wanted to do a bell sound, I bet you anything I could find this. And maybe something like a glockenspiel, who knows. But we could find that a very similar sound to try to reproduce this. I'm going to try to look for something like a stab. So let's see, we have this section called hits. I bet you anything I'm going to find something in here that'll represent at least close enough to what we were just dealing with. So record arm the track. Now notice here is the plugin. So when I hit the key, you're actually going to see sound here, but you're also going to see MIDI interacting up here. Oh, and I don't have it soloed, so you're not hearing it. Yeah, it's definitely a hit. The only thing I don't like about this hit is the decay on the hit is very, very long. So let's go through and just audition a couple other hit sounds. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and use this. I'm actually going to get rid of some of the reverb. You'll notice it actually has effects built into this, and the reverb is actually what's carrying that tail a little bit. But this little plugin I really, really like. I noticed some of you guys are mentioning that that you guys have been using this on your final project. I'm glad you guys have stumbled into this. This is a great little plugin. So now that I have the sound that I need, we need to go back and listen for what note value they're actually choosing. So this is the little section that we were listening to those stabs happening in. So here we go. There's our notes. So what I'm actually going to do in this case, I'm not going to bore you with trying to play these in. I'm actually just going to noodle it in. Many times if I actually don't have a keyboard, and for instance, I actually worked a private party for the Indy Racing League and Gene Simmons aboard the Disney Wonder. And I did this really cool thing where I did a mashup. Gene Simmons wrote the lead intro song for the Indy Racing League. So anytime you watch any of the Indy races, you're actually hearing Kiss. You're hearing Gene Simmons music that's happening in the intro. Well, I actually took his intro because the intro sounds a whole lot like We Will Rock You with hand claps and stomps. So I actually took it and I did a quick mash on the ship. And unfortunately, I didn't have a keyboard on me, but I don't have to have a keyboard because you can actually pencil in the notes. Now, this isn't the way you probably traditionally want to work, but this is a way that you can work if you find yourself in a bind. So notice I can go find the notes over here and just pencil them in. Let's change my note value slightly here because I don't think the notes are going to be that big. Yeah, that looks more like it. So again, I'm just going to audition it so I have a reference for what it is I'm playing. So I penciled in the note. I think that's the correct note. Let's listen to it. mute this out and listen to it again. Yeah, I think that's going to work. That's going to be fine. So we'll just drag the note. Option drag it. So if we listen back, that should be the same exact note values that we're playing. What's interesting is it actually sounds, it actually kind of sounded good doubled up with the original. So if that's the case, then what do you say we just leave the original and this one combined together, and we'll get rid of the rest of the parts? So what do I mean by that is take a look. We can always just get rid of the rest of the information that we're not using, keep the parts that we are using, and then just double them up wherever they happen. So I'm actually going to layer in the original with this part that we're using here. Get rid of this. And so anywhere I put this MIDI piece, we'll put this together. I'm just liking the fact that they kind of sound nice blended together. Make this a little louder. Yeah, they're actually basically almost chorusing off of each other, so they start to sound really, really cool together. So here's one way I could always make sure that these guys always stay together wherever I put them in the song. Let's switch this back to Clips View, and I could always obviously rearrange these as an actual clips by themselves, but we could actually take these and turn these into a region group. That way, notice they are now grouped together. If I try to edit one, notice I'm going to be editing both of them. So the quick key for that, if you ever want to create a region group and grouping things together so that you know they'll always happen at the same location, and that way you don't have to move two items around, the quick key for that is Option Command G. I'm going to give you another example of where that would be a really cool and useful tool. Let's say the producer says, hey, I want you to take the entire bridge section and make it happen at the end of the song. Well, all I'd have to do is select up at the top across my ruler view, and notice it's selecting the entire bridge. So now that I have my bridge section, I could turn this into one large region group. Command Option G, and then I just drag this down to the end of the song. Option drag it, and that'll copy it. And now I've pulled off what the producer said in just a couple really quick moves without having to move each individual region that I've got going on there. I'm going to undo that and undo the group. But I'm just kind of giving you guys an idea of some other ways that you can quickly and easily move things around inside of Pro Tools. Now, I did hear some other keys that were going on the keyboard section, not just that one piece. Let me be sure and pull up my virtual instrument too. I'm going to call this Stab, S-T-A-B-B, because that's what it is. It's just basically a little stab that's happening. And it looks like my region group is still there. Cool. So if I were to copy this, Option drag it, notice it's pulling both pieces with it. That way, when I stencil out through the song, it's all going to be there. Let's take a quick listen and see what we got going on this track here. Now you can hear what we call, this is called a stem. There's a bunch of different sounds happening on this track, and it's basically taken all the keyboards and combined them all into one track. And so I heard several different things there. We heard the stabs that I just performed. We also heard the toy box glockenspiel type sound, and we also heard some strings that were going on along with some other arpeggiated sounds. So it's going to be up to me to sit and listen and to pick apart what's going on in this track. But what I want to do right now, pardon me, is pull up some strings. Because again, the key structure for this song is so simple that I'm going to be able to put this back together real quickly and easily, just listening and following along with the note values. So let's create a new stereo instrument track. And I already know what I want. I want it to be strings, so I'm going to go ahead and name it strings. S-T-R-I-N-G-S. Cool. And then it's basically the same note values as what I was using here for for these stabs. So if I've done these correctly, I should be able to just option drag this, but notice when I try to option drag it, it wants to take both parts. So that means I'm going to have to ungroup it. So to ungroup it, once it's selected, just choose ungroup. And if I option drag, oops, they are not ungrouped. Let's try it again. Clip. There, we've got it ungrouped now. So if we drag this over to where I heard the strings, and then I pull up a string patch, as well as put up a virtual instrument, this should be all good to go. Now, strings are going to carry on for a bit, so these notes being staccato, not carrying to one another, I'm going to do a little bit of change up to these notes. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to my notes view, and then we're going to change the grid resolution, and then I'm going to drag the end of these notes. Notice they're all selected right now, so if I click and drag, they're all going to stretch to their note length. Now, the only one that needs to go a little bit further would be this guy. He needs to be carried all the way out. So notice I've got my pattern, but notice that these notes are grayed out, and the track is grayed out. That's because I haven't really applied any sound to this yet. So let's pull up the expand, instrument track, expand. And I know I've got strings in here, so let's just go to our string category. Let's see. Strings. Let's go back and actually listen to see how these actually sound. So I may or may not have had the correct note value. I think I did, but I'm not sure. Let's actually listen to it. Put myself back in the grid mode. Cool. So check it out. It was the same exact notes as the stabs themselves. So all I had to do is copy those little stabs over, and then everything's there. So that's all done. Now, the only thing I'm going to do further on here is just figure out where these parts go. Well, take a look. I can already see, since we've stenciled it out, I already know where my chorus and verse is at. So let's go ahead and change this back to a clip view. And I'm just going to duplicate it till it gets up to the end there. And then I have a feeling, I'm just looking at the break here. If I were to go back and listen to this, I think the strings are going to take a break for this section. Let's listen. So I'm already back to those stabs again. So then we might as well delete this and put those stabs back in where they go. I'm going to go ahead and listen and see where the actual strings come back in. That way I know where to copy these. Because eventually we're going to get rid of this track entirely because we've already basically replaced all those sounds. So let's listen in and see where we got the strings. It'll also probably help if I just change my note value. I'm going to assume that these things happen pretty much in the verse and the chorus. So chorus 1, it's already there. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drag it to every single chorus section. You can see I've got a chorus there. And I know this says bridge, but I'm going to put it in the bridge section as well as the last verse. Now, why did I pick what I did? Well, I noticed every time I saw a string section, I'm looking at the waveform here, and I could be wrong, but I have a pretty good hunch that the strings are happening through here because it's thicker, strings are happening through here because the waveform's thicker, and strings are happening there. Some other things I want to pay attention to is those stabs that we were looking at earlier. Those stabs happen here as well. So I want to make sure that I drag those stabs and make them happen there. Let's go ahead and get them to happen. Oops. Let me just see if there's a couple other locations. What I'm probably going to do too is I'm just going to paste this stab right over top of the other piece below it. So let's go ahead and regroup this again. So that's Command Option G. And I know immediately it goes there. Actually, it's going to go like this. Goes like that. I like it. So let's option drag these to their respective locations. I know it's going to happen through here as well. I can clearly and easily see that it happens there. I can see those stabs happen there as well. So notice I'm just basically eyeballing this at this point, but I'm also using the reference points of my verses that I've stenciled out. So since they're all stenciled out like that, this makes it really quick and easy for me to figure out where the parts go. So I'm done with this track. I'm going to get rid of it now. I'm going to go ahead and just delete this track. We don't, actually, you know what? I can't delete this track anymore, but we can delete the parts that we're no longer using. Any part where I see my strings, we no longer need because the strings have done it. The last set of strings is a quarter off the grid. Well, the reason for that, William brought up a point. He's noticing, he's looking at the end here, and he's concerned that this is going to be further than the song. Take a look, though. I think if we pull up the entire song, you'll see that the song itself, oh, actually, you might be right. Take a look at that. Let's see here. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Oh, you know what? They're actually off entirely. Good looking out. So select these guys, bump them over. There you go. Hey, thanks, William. Thanks for catching that. I didn't quite see that, but now it's clear as day. What really helps is these markers. So when those markers are up there, it really gives you that visual clue. I'm glad you guys saw that. Yeah, good eye. Nice catch. Just for funsies, let's take a look at what I have already as far as the MIDI information, and notice how quick and easy this was. This song, since it basically has 3 notes in it, was really, really easy to create. I have to take a short restroom break, so I'm going to go ahead and let this play, and I'll see you guys back in about 3.5 minutes, and then we'll jump back into our lesson. But let's actually see what we've got so far, and that'll give us an idea of where we need to go from here. So let's take a listen.
Got it 9 to 5. Some of you beat the overdrive. I mean, we burn it overtime. In my love, we burn alive. But you shut on the side. That she love me style, and she love me style. You with you as a nice. Oh, yeah, let's see how we can you know your friendly position. When you see your position, you know your friendly position. Come from the side, most represent you don't have no trouble. But that food I got a little trouble. Gas my trouble, you have to be a double. Oh, says she can't mix that free, so she can't be sure that I rock the beat. Some of the laugh for the laugh, yeah. What they shop like that, yeah. See how we try, you know I'm feeling position. That's how I go. When you see what we shine, you know you're feeling position. That's how I go. Like a dumb dumb, baby, I'm talking. Like a countryman, girl, I'm a champion. Like a balance, work for me, I'm a score. Me, I'm a make a wine, I'm a and the kids are making talk and chat, say, make yourself no just cross on the finger. Queen Janet, the crown around you and me. I like you, she ever made me cry. To be standing first, and she never wanted not to stop. Here we come in front, and we get to come back. She got her own and friend, she attacked. She said, I'm a sad boy, I'm coming right lady. I love it when you do me like that. Never, oh God, you got me. I like it that way. If you wanna go, I like it that way. I am sweet in I used to never make a moving for me like never before. Yeah. Oh, 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 oh. Hey, no, 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 no. Oh,
All right. So you can see the songs coming together really, really quickly and easily. Oh, somebody had a question here. Do I play? Um, I really don't play. I mean, I can noodle around and find just like you guys saw me do. I'm not going to hold back any punches here. No, I'm not a player. I'm a producer slash remix artist. So as you saw me do, I noodled around until I find the notes and then I plug them in. And the cool thing is, nobody's going to be the wiser on your end or my end because when they hear the finished product, nobody's seeing that I'm finding the notes by running my finger up the keyboard to find the note. So what I want to do now is I want to switch over and let's talk about converting our MIDI into audio. And the piece that I'm going to do that with is going to be the bass line because I actually want to chop up the bass line and make it a little bit more my own because right now we're just following the original notes. But if I record this down to audio, then I can start to manipulate the audio. And that's one of Pro Tools' strong points. As you guys have seen me do some audio editing earlier, but I want to show you again tonight how to do basically the same thing, as well as committing your MIDI down to audio so that you can apply effects and do edits to it. Because right now it's simply just being triggered via the MIDI notes. So let's go ahead and we'll get into that. And let's show you what we're going to do. So what I'm going to do is let's hide all tracks except for, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and start getting rid of tracks that I don't need. But this is probably a good time to do another save as version. That way, again, if I mess anything up, I can go back and I have a safe place to return to because I can go back to my older version and I'll be able to retain any of the changes that were made. For instance, if we go back today, if I were to close out of this session and open up one of my more recent ones that we did earlier, we can kind of see where we came from earlier this evening. For instance, here's a backup point to where we had any of that MIDI information. Here's where we just basically had some of those loops, and there's that big loop that we worked on earlier. So this serves as a really good backup point, and it's a good idea to start getting the habit of doing save as versions. Let's go back and we'll close this. We'll reopen up my last one, my version 4 that we were just working on. Version 4. And then let's record this down as audio. Okay, cool. So for right now, I've already got some tracks that we don't need anymore. I don't need this bass track anymore because we've already got our own bass, so might as well go ahead and get rid of it. I could hide it and make it active, but in this case, since I've done a save as version, it's okay for me to actually just delete it. Because like I showed you guys earlier, I have other versions. If I need to go back and import that track, the original bass track, you guys remember your week 1 assignment made you guys import a sessions track from another session. So I can feel safe knowing that deleting this track is okay because I can always go get it from one of my other previous versions in the event that I need it. I don't think I'm going to need it, but just kind of giving you hints and tips on why you would want to work in certain ways versus others. We'll go ahead and delete it for now. We've already got that. So right now, if you take a look at my song, I'm down to, let's see if there's anything else in here that was the original. I'm down to just the vocals now are the original. Everything else has been replaced. And I probably will want to go in and add some more of my own tastings, but for tonight, let's go ahead and let's get down the old bass line and show you what's happening with that. So when I created this bass line, remember that it was the growl bass. It started off as MIDI. So then the audio isn't going to be on this MIDI track. It's going to be on this aux track, because this was when I showed you guys the old school method. I purposely am going to show you the mix window because I think what I'm about to do will be better represented if I'm showing you in a mix environment, because we're going to start doing some signal routing. So I want you guys to see how to actually accomplish that. Notice the track I'm going to be getting my audio from is, oh, wait a minute. This should have been an aux track. Interesting. Let's go ahead and let's create a stereo aux track. So when I created this earlier, I messed up. Not a big deal. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to option drag this plugin over, and we'll delete this one. Notice when I deleted it, though, the output changed for my MIDI track. So let's reassign it to go back to the vacuum. Because I copied it, it's going to have the same patch. So if I play it back, we should have the exact same patch. Because I copied it over, it's going to remember the patch information for what I had it on. So and we'll just call this GB for growl bass for right now, just to give it a name so we know what we're dealing with. So the sound is actually coming from this track. I need to get it out of this track. Here's my output. Into the track I'm going to record it to. Here's my input. So for the output, let's route this out of a bus. Notice none of my buses are currently used. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to use 21 and 22. It doesn't really matter what bus path you use as long as you use one that's not currently used. So to record this, it's going out 21 and 22. It needs to be coming in bus 21 and 22. So let's do that. Input here, bus 21, bus 21 and 22. Now the cool thing about this bass line is I'm not going to have to record it for the whole length of the song. The reason being is it repeats throughout the entire song. So then why would I need to go back and actually record the entire thing? The only thing I need to record down is this one little section, and then I can duplicate it wherever it needs to go in the song. I'm actually, because it might actually carry over at the end a little bit, I'm going to make my recording slightly longer, and then I'm going to show you this get recorded down. And before I record it, let's just talk about the signal path. So here's my MIDI. My MIDI's flying over and triggering this virtual instrument here. We can see it in my mix window. If you're not seeing it in your mix window, it would be due to one of these icons not being checked off. So notice you can actually do all your mixing and everything from this window, but I typically will hide things that I'm not using. But so MIDI's flying over, triggering a virtual instrument vacuum, and so the sound is coming out of this track, going into this track. So all I need to do is record arm the track and start myself on the record process. Let's pull up my transport, because if you guys remember, I actually had wait for note turned on. Let's turn that off, and I'm going to go ahead and record this down. Notice that the sound I use had a bit of a tail here. And so I intentionally left a little extra recording space for that tail. You can see how if I had just done the 4 bars there, I would have missed the tail or the decay of the sound. That's going to be important because I don't know if any of you guys are using this as your project, but this last note actually got bent down. It almost sounds like somebody used the modulation wheel to bend this very last note to bend down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually do a little crafty maneuver here. Change myself into eighth notes. Cool. On this whole end section here, I'm going to actually bend this down by using a plugin here called Verify. You can find Verify underneath Audio Suite, and if you go to Pitch Shift, what Verify is going to do is it's basically going to make it sound like a record stop. I'll go ahead and I'll play this back so you can hear what it does. So it's going to give it a record stop effect. I'm going to turn this up a little bit so you can hear it. And in the original bass line, if we were to pull that up, that was actually part of that original bass line. Now that I have this and I've already got it, let's go ahead and let's paste this into this portion here. Shift Option 3 will consolidate. So now that pitch bend is in there. I don't even really need these 2 tracks anymore. So these 2 tracks, we will hide these and make them inactive. However, I'm actually going to use it as my guide here, so I'm not going to do this process yet. But when I'm done with it, we'll hide it and make it inactive. I'll change my grid resolution to 1 bar increments, and then we'll just drag these to where they go. This little tail end piece is only going to happen at the end of any of these resolves. So part of that tail end you're going to see is actually going to get pasted over, but we only need it to be on the end of the resolve of any of these passages. So Option drag, and notice I'm doing this in grid because the grid here is now going to overlap that little chunk there. Bada bing, bada boom, bada bing, bada boom. So if I play this back, you're only going to hear that pitch down on the very last note. Let's play it back so you can actually hear what it is I'm talking about. And here comes that bend we're talking about. Now, there's a really good question to ask. William Bennett says, why are we using an aux track? That's a very good question. The reason why we're using an aux track is because aux tracks don't use up any of your available voices. So it doesn't use up the number of tracks that you. Most DAWs are going to be limited by the number of tracks that you can actually play back audio on. Whereas an aux track will pass audio through it, but it doesn't actually eat up any of your available voices. So currently I have 256 available audio tracks that can play back audio. And then if I go beyond that, they'll actually be inactive audio tracks. But to keep away from, now it's a lot of audio. I've never had 256 tracks in an actual music project. You might run into that in a film or post project, but most music projects are going to stay under somewhere between a good put together song could be 24 tracks, or it could be up to 64 tracks. But typically, if we're talking about 64 tracks of audio, some of those are miscellaneous smaller tracks that are dealing with effects and things like that. So good question, by the way. Keep those questions coming. Since I see that these are all little 3-bar sections, and then we have the pitch bend at the bottom there. Oh, one other thing that before I move forward, you guys may have heard, I don't know if you caught this, but there's a little pop happening. Let's zoom in and let you hear that pop. That pop is where I hardcore edited into this audio. I don't want that pop to be there. We got to get rid of this. Let's let you hear the pop. It's right there in the center. So since we're getting a pop right there, let's get rid of those pops. So what I'm going to do is we're going to create fades. But we're not going to go and create the individual fades. Let's just create batch fades because that'll take care of for me. Command F, batch fades is going to basically create crossfades in between each of these little parts. So we go back and listen. Hopefully this got rid of those. And if not, I might have to do some more finagling. Let's listen and see. I'm going to change my grid resolution so we can listen to just a portion of it, not all of it. Yeah, those pops are now gone. Cool. So now the pops are gone. Put myself into 1-bar increments. I just changed my grid resolution. By the way, I'm using a quick key to change my grid. You see me go up here to change my grid. The quick key to change a grid without having to go up to this menu. You hold down Control, Option, and use your plus and minus keys, but you have to have a numeric keypad in order to do this. So it really helps out when you're working with MIDI because you're going to be changing grids a lot. Now that I've got the grid I want, Option drag it to the little spots I need it to go. Bada bing, bada boom. Cool, it's done. Now these 2 tracks above it, we can get rid of those. We don't need to view them anymore. For your final project, you want to stay away from deleting these tracks that you're seeing me delete. I'm just doing it for today's process. That way you guys can see just the cleanup as you're going along. If in the event that you don't want to see these tracks, you could always hide them and make them inactive. So if you right-click, you can say hide. And this doesn't say hide and make inactive because MIDI tracks don't have to be made inactive because they don't utilize voices. But for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and delete these. Again, you don't want to usually delete something unless you've done a save as. So let's go ahead and do a file save as. Save as. We'll do a version 5. Cool. And that way, if I delete these tracks, I still have them in other sessions. So delete the tracks. Cool. And show all the tracks. So here is the session so far. That is my session. That's everything we're utilizing so far. That's the song. I typically will take the vocals as well and you put them all the way at the top. You guys have seen me kind of working a little bit backwards, but that's only because I'm trying to kind of keep things in a workflow environment. I usually will also have my rhythm right underneath so I can see that, and then my bass line, I usually have it right underneath as well. And then I've got my keyboard. So this just keeps a nice order. I see my vocals, I see where all my rhythm's at, I see where my bass line's at. I see I've got my keys here. We've got some of my other strings and stab sounds. So I mentioned I was going to do something a little different with the bass line. Let me show you what I'm going to do, and then I want to do some fun, creative stuff with the vocals and using MIDI. So let's show you what I'm talking about. With the bass line itself, I think this thing might sound pretty cool if I take myself, I put myself into 16th notes. Actually, no, let's do 8th notes. And if I go and I delete every other 8th note, this is going to give it a pumpier, it's almost going to sound like we were playing the bass line as opposed to just a one held note. So we'll go through here. We'll just get rid of every other line. I'm sorry, every other 8th note. And then when I go to play this back, let's solo it out so you can hear the difference now. And I want you to hear it with the song in a moment, but let's listen to it individually. So I didn't like that. I should have chosen 16th notes. Let's go back and do that. Now this is going to take a considerable more amount of editing on my part, but I think once you hear the results, you'll see what it is I'm talking about. And it's going to give the song a little bit more emotion. And of course, notice I'm hardcore just editing right into the audio, and that's going to create a problem. What kind of problem is that going to create? We just ended up solving that problem a minute ago. And what did I use to solve that problem? Because if you're hardcore editing into your audio, you're going to end up with what? Yeah, we're going to use fades, but why am I using fades? Yeah, we're going to hear pops and clicks on this. So once I go to start to play this back, and instead of creating little tiny fade ins and fade outs on every single little piece, we're going to use crossfade because that's going to speed up the whole, I'm sorry, batch fades, because that's going to speed up the whole process for us. All right, let's actually listen to what I've done here so you guys can get an idea of what I'm talking about. So we got all those nasty pops and clicks. Let's select the audio here and Command F and do batch fades across all of these, and that'll get rid of that pop and click. I can also go ahead and consolidate this into one piece, and that way when I start to drag it around, it'll be where I need it to be. And notice I'm going to have to kind of paste over some of the work I've already done. So let's get back to 1-bar increments. I'm going to option drag to this position. Of course, the front of this is going to end up covering that, but that's okay. I just only need it open at the end there. Option drag, option drag. Now I can select all three of these and option drag, and we'll be done with this real quick. Bam, bam, bam. And let's hear it in the song itself. So let's undo it and let you hear what that sounds like. So you get the idea. It's giving this really cool, almost gives it a rhythm. Now, check this out. Yeah, somebody said nice funk feel. It gives it, it changes it up from just being a static, one note being held, to something that seems a little bit more entertaining. We could have also gone in and maybe done some of the processing that you saw me do to some of the other, to the end. Remember when I did that verify to that one section? Maybe we could do it on, let's see, let's do it, I'm going to do it to this portion here and this portion here, just on the back end. So what I'm going to do is let's change this to quarter notes. This whole section here, we're going to use verify on. I'm going to do the same thing to this back section. I'm going to leave this one alone because it already kind of has it on there. In fact, let's just do it to just here and see what it sounds like. It might not actually work out, but let's try it out. Pitch shift, verify, and render it. And just to give you an idea of what this is going to sound like, if we solo it out, it makes it sound like a record stopping. So if we put that in with the composition, I'm going to mute out the vocals just so you can hear with the rest of the song what that sounds like. So it kind of gave it that little peel down, almost record stop effect. Just trying to be creative and showing you guys other ways of doing some things. We could have also maybe even reversed some sections, but I'm going to leave that up to you guys. We're starting to run out of time. There's a couple other things I want to show you that I think will really kind of open up some eyes here just a bit. So let's hide everything and let's just deal with the vocal track. And with this vocal track, I want to show you a new little technique that I like to employ in my productions. And that's that I like to take a little vocal phrase and I like to sample it and then re-trigger that vocal phrase. To do that, you have a free virtual instrument that comes with Pro Tools called Structure. Think of Structure as like your EXS-24, but for Pro Tools. And the cool thing about this too is I'm going to be able to edit out any of the vocals here and just drag and drop it into that plugin. So let's show you the plugin first. I'm going to create a stereo instrument track. And by now we already know that an instrument track is a hybrid of two tracks. It's going to be your aux track and your MIDI track. Let's call this Vox Effects because I'm going to create little vocal effects with this. So Vox Effects. And now I got to decide what word I'm going to use. So let me find a portion of the song coming maybe back into the second verse. Let me hear, I'm going to listen to my bridge here. So to listen to the bridge, I see that that's memory location 7, period. We'll just play it back from that portion. And I'm probably going to do something with the vocals that are coming in here, but I want to hear what it sounds like. Just to let you guys know, we do have a large thunderstorm that's moving in my area, and my lights just flickered. So in the event that somehow we lose connection, I don't want you guys to think that I've quit out of the session. Hopefully I keep my lights on, but my lights did just flicker. Let's listen from the bridge, and then I want to show you this little piece here. It's... Yeah, if I solo that out, I don't know if that's the piece I want to use. Let's listen how it comes in on that verse. So what I'm listening for is this first little word here. I think I'm going to use this word first is what I'm going to use because this just seems like some scat he did right before he went. And so first. So if I take a look here, I'm going to change my grid resolution. I'm going to think that 16th notes or probably 8th notes is going to do it. I actually tell you what, he actually lands this a little off. So if I go to 16th notes, that's the word I want. Oh, no, it wasn't. It's first. Here we go. Perfect. It's dead on. So that's what we're going to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this and copy it down to another track, and I'll show you why. I'm noticing the back end. I really don't want that word. So let's do this instead. Let's actually put myself in a slip mode. Let's change the end of my selection. Cool. That's the only word that I want to go into my sampler. So I'm going to separate that. Command E. Now, your sampler only works based off of mono parts, but remember I showed you that this is a multi-mono file. So if I have it selected here, I'm going to be able to find it within my regions list. And I only want to use one side of it because this sampler that we're going to use here in a moment only deals with mono files. Let's pull up the sampler. We'll go down to Instruments. It's called Structure. Structure free. So since I edited out the sound I need, I'm just simply going to drag that from my regions list into our sampler here. Now the first thing I want to point out is if I record on this track, then we got to tell the output what it's going to go trigger. It actually gives you a sine wave. You can see the sine wave is there and it's already loaded. Go ahead and just delete that. You don't really need it there. So select it, right click on it, and just say cut patch. We don't want it in there. We're just going to get rid of it. I'm going to go over and I'm going to grab, we're going to open this up, and notice I have, if I open up my window here, I've got a left and a right side to the file. It doesn't really matter which side you grab, but let's just grab it, drag it into this little patch, and now I actually have the patch there. So now that I've got the sample I want, I'm going to create a little glissando that glissandos right up to the word here that he's saying, which is the word first. So glissando meaning middle C, that's the sample. And I'm triggering this with my keyword, by the way. I know I just hid the plugin. So if I go down 2 octaves and I just follow it all the way up, that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to rake my fingers across the keys right before it gets to that section, and then it'll be recorded as MIDI, and then it'll give it that little glide effect for his vocals, which now we're talking about, we're dealing with audio, but we're treating audio as though it were MIDI. So let's go ahead and let's figure out, where do I want to start this? I'm thinking about here looks like a good spot. I'm looking at that because it's slightly a bar before it. And what I'm going to do is we're also going to put on wait for note. And that way I'm just going to glide from my very bottom note, and it's waiting for me to record, and it'll catch my little glissando. In the event I mess this up, it's not a big deal. We can go back in just like you guys saw in our MIDI editor, and we can fix this. So as soon as I hit a note right now, Pro Tools is automatically going to start recording. So now I kind of messed it up. I kind of did it a little bit fast, but that's all right. What we're going to do is let's take this information, let's move it over to where I wanted it to be. So I want it to basically end up landing on his words here. Option F will zoom in to it. So this is kind of cool because this will let me see that I can actually just go back and kind of stencil this in. In fact, I probably didn't even have to play it in. We'll go to notes here. Or take a look at this. If you double click on any MIDI region, you'll actually get a MIDI editor, which is kind of cool. For those of you that like MIDI editors, I typically stay right in this window because I don't like to go into another MIDI editor, and I usually just edit my MIDI here. But if you like having a dedicated MIDI editor, just simply double click and notice we're now in a MIDI editor. It'll show you just the MIDI notes. So now the reason I typically stay out of this MIDI editor is because I like to basically do it in the original window, because I'm going to need to get this to land with the audio itself. So let's pull this over a little bit. That doesn't look too bad, but what I'm end up doing is probably moving these notes over. So what I could have probably done that would have made this a little bit easier, take a look at this. Let's just delete my performance for right now. I just wanted to give you an idea of a way of playing it in. But I could have just penciled it in as well. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's get myself over here into what note value? Let's use eighth notes. Now, middle C is 3. So that's actually the note I'm going to use. But let's go over here in the notes view. We're going to delete all these notes. So this note right here, that's where I've got to end up on. So let's get myself into grid mode. I actually might end up taking this down to 16th notes. Let's try that. So I know the last note is going to be, the last note to complete this is going to be middle C here. So if that's where I need to end up at, it would be this here. Now I'm not going to actually use that note because it'll end up doubling up this part. So we'll just start, I'm just going to start creating a stair step down. Make this a little bit bigger. Maybe even scroll down a little bit so I can see these notes. Notice I'm just using the arrow to scroll down. So the cool thing about this is going to be in perfect timing with the music, and it's his own word. Slide over just a bit. Whoops, yikes. slide over, and I'm going to stop it here in a second, but this will give it a pretty dramatic effect. Actually, that's one of the, it's starting to get a little bit low, and I'm thinking if I start it here, oh, what the heck. Can't hurt. If I don't like it, I'll just change it. So if we listen back now, it's going to glide up into the word that he just said. So which was first. I'm going to go ahead and just solo these two so you can hear them just by themselves.
Oh, and it's the first time she ever get it like that. When we start the first time, she never wanted not to stop. Do it.
So you guys get the idea. It's just basically gliding up to the word he says. We're using his own vocals to create those effects. You're probably used to hearing this in like old Stevie B songs. I'm probably dating myself to hear this, but this whole sampling the vocal, you'll hear that in things like Diamond Girl and a lot of Miami freestyle tracks from the mid 80s up into the early to mid 90s. A lot of Miami freestyle utilized sampling a little bit of the vocal and then playing it in. Of course, I just did a glissando. We could have done it from top to bottom. I just did it from bottom to top. It just gives it little cool little effects to kind of accentuate the vocal parts. This thunderstorm in my direction is really kicking up pretty hard, and we're about to be done anyways with tonight's session. So we've covered a lot tonight. I'm going to want to go ahead and open it up for some questions here. So anything that maybe you guys saw that I went a little too fast on, you want me to show you it again, or if you just have general questions. We only have about 8 minutes left of class, but I'm just concerned that I might lose power soon. I don't know if the thunder and lightning is translating into my speaker. I don't know if you guys are hearing that happen outside. Florida has some of the United States' biggest lightning storms, and it has to do with the fact that we're on a peninsula. Both sides of the ocean have an ocean breeze that'll come in the evening because the cumulonimbus clouds in the center of Florida will pull the air in from the ocean. So the cumulonimbus clouds are shooting straight up. They end up pulling in a breeze off the Gulf and the Atlantic, and that creates some really interesting late night thunderstorms. In fact, we had one roll through last night at 3:30 in the morning. Yeah, I'm not Pete Woods. I'm not a meteorologist, but that's funny. Yeah, Daniil, if you ever need some private time, absolutely. You guys will notice, unless I'm grading or doing something to where I can't stop and be available to you guys, I'm generally up on iChat every single day from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So if you guys need some hands-on, one-on-one, please come see me. I like Pro Tools. I like hanging out with my students and showing you guys what this stuff is all about. So if you guys ever have any issues, or maybe you have questions that you don't want to ask here in a live stream session, you're more than welcome to always contact me. Please remember, you can always call me on campus. You can hit me up via iChat. You can also send me emails. I'm really good about keeping on top of getting back with my students. You won't probably catch me over the weekends. Weekends are mine. I'm sorry, but for the most part during the week, I'm there for you guys. And anytime you need any kind of assistance or help, let me know. Hey, I did notice one other thing on this track, and that was that the original vocals were slightly louder than my little glissando. So to combat that, I'm just going to turn it up just a little bit here on the track that the sample track was on. That way, when it glides back up, you'll be able to hear that. Let me get all these tracks to resize here a little bit, and this will kind of accentuate that glissando that we just created.
Oh, first time she ever get it like that to me.
Cool. Any other question you guys might have? Anything that you guys need me to review? I know I have a tendency of working a little bit fast, but there's just so much information for us to try to squeeze in here. I will have the archive available. I have been recording this evening's session, so it will be available to you. It usually won't be available until about midway through tomorrow afternoon. The simple reason for that is this site, the GoToTraining site, it actually has to render it down to my computer first. So when I'm done with tonight's session, it'll take probably about an hour and a half to 2 hours to render down. And then I have to upload it to our YouTube channel. And you'll be able to find this underneath the announcement section. So take a look at the announcement section, and all of our live stream sessions will be there for you. Yeah, the name of the plugin that you just saw me use is Structure Free. It comes free with every single Pro Tools system. There was a question somebody had. I'm sorry, the chat's moving just a little bit fast right now. Somebody had a question about KeyCaster. In the event you have KeyCaster, go back and take a look. Generally, what happens is students are missing a portion that talks about assisted services. Let me see if I can get to that information for you guys. Thunder's getting a little bit louder on my end, so if you guys are hearing that, it's not make-believe, that's the real thing. If KeyCaster isn't working for you, ooh, that's not good. Oh, here I want to show you guys, if you ever get this error, take a look here. Sometimes you'll need to get rid of the end of the string here up at the top in order to access. If you ever get some kind of weirdness trying to get into Full Sail, just get rid of any of the string that's tied to that. So I real quickly go in and show you. I'm going to actually copy and paste this information for you guys concerning KeyCaster. To be honest with you, we're not going to count you guys off if you're not using KeyCaster. It just helps us because it helps us see what key commands you're using in the event that you're using them. Again, you don't have to use the key commands though, but it's this portion at the bottom that I think a lot of students end up missing, and it has to do with assisted devices being enabled, because KeyCaster will not work unless that is working. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that so that everybody has that. Oh, great. It looks like the links aren't there. Well, let me actually see if I can paste these links in here for you. So what this is, if I go to copy this link, give me a second here. You guys are kind of seeing the back end of the FSO platform. So if I go to get this link for you, this will actually show you where this information, it's a short video. It's not a video that I created. It was just one that I found online to help you guys figure out what assisted devices were. Oh, okay, cool, Michael, nice. Michael says he had to check and uncheck assisted services several times to get that to work. So maybe that's the issue. Let's see. You guys want from me either. I'm just reading through a couple of your questions here before we wrap. We got a couple of minutes left here. Not sure I like that effect. Not sure why. Is it possible to blend the MIDI better via inserts? Oh, William, what I could have done is I could have recorded it down to audio, because remember, we learned how to record our MIDI down to audio. So that little glissando effect, you could have recorded it as audio, chop it up, reverse it, do whatever you want to it. There's a lot of really creative things you could do to it. And I'm just giving you guys some ideas and thoughts. You don't have to follow along and do the exact things that I'm doing. I'm just showing some really creative ways to use your MIDI information, but also be controlling audio with it. Oh, okay. What are the pops and clicks? This is a really good question. So let's show off what we're talking about. If I go back into Pro Tools here, and let's say I edit right in the middle of this vocal, I create an edit. Now this is a pretty hardcore edit. I just chopped into the waveform of this audio. So if I move this away, let's zoom in and take a look at what just really happened. When we're looking at the waveform here, we're looking at the rarefaction and the compression, rarefaction compression of the waveform, or the speaker moving out and then in, and out and then in. And what we did is we chopped right into the audio here at this point. So if Pro Tools is playing along and this is dead silence, all of a sudden you're asking the speaker to be in two positions at once. This is dead silence, and in a period of no time at all, this little, if I put my instantiation point, that's not an amount of time. If I make a selection, that's an amount of time. Cool. So in other words, the speaker's at the resting position. I'm asking the speaker to be excurted or all of the way. So you're going to hear pops and clicks. That's a bad edit. What you want to get in the habit of doing and you're not always going to be able to do this, so here's why you'd use crossfades. You'd want to edit where there's a zero crossing point. You see where my edit currently is? In fact, I could probably improve that a little bit better. There, that's the closest zero crossing I can get to. So the next cycle would be here. Now, if I duplicate that, you're asking the speaker to basically pick right back up with where it left off. I'm going to duplicate this just as an example. Notice we're basically almost creating our own form of sine wave here, but the fluidity of the speaker is going to be that the speaker itself will continue on its natural path. So you're not going to get those pops and clicks. Let's imagine I really disobeyed this rule. Let's say I'm going to undo these crazy edits I'm doing to my project here. Oops, I'm in the wrong mode. Sorry about that, guys. Let's say I obeyed the rule, and that was my edit. And then here was my next piece of audio. And if I put these guys right next to each other in shuffle mode, this is a hardcore major foul. Pro Tools will try to draw a line to connect it, but notice the speaker was in this position, and now immediately it's in this position. You're probably still going to hear pops and clicks there. So those pops and clicks just have to do with bad audio edits. You just want to get in the habit of using zero crossing edits whenever you're going to create an edit. In the event you're not using zero crossing edits, you're going to have to create crossfades to get rid of, minimize those pops and clicks. Hey, yeah, not a problem. Really, really, really good questions. So I tell you what, guys, we are at the end of our class tonight, and you guys have had great questions. Thanks for basically. Oh, here comes lightning. Wow, scary. Thanks for showing up tonight, guys, and thanks for hanging out. Shortcut index, is there one? Tell you what, there is. However, I don't know if you're like me, but it's like 31 pages. So if you Google Pro Tools Quick Keys, in fact, let's say Pro Tools 10 Quick Keys. That way we're specifying the version. There have been some new ones that have showed up in Pro Tools, but this is going to give you here's a PDF here. And I'll go ahead and I'll copy and paste this. I typically am not going to use this document only because I'm not probably going to want to scour through 31 pages to figure out a quick key. Typically, you're going to use the quick keys when you get carpal tunnel and you're tired of doing the same repetitive thing. For this class, I'm not going to count you guys off for not using quick keys. If you're having to go through a menu to get your work done, that's fine. I'm not going to count you off. Do I want you to learn your quick keys? Well, heck yeah, but in the event you don't, it's no harm, no foul. You're not going to be counted off for not using quick keys. Yeah, somebody mentioned, I think it just scrolled up. Somebody, Mr. Woods just told me to go outside and fly a kite and see if I discover something new. It got kind of totally distracted me. That's pretty funny. When it comes to quick keys, again, I'm not going to count you off on quick keys. Somebody else asked a question right before that. Give me a second. Let me see what it was. Okay, I didn't see what the question was. Oh, yeah, concerning command and spacebar usually starts your record process. You're going to find that the Mac operating system has hijacked some of the Pro Tools quick keys. So I believe, I looked this up today for another student. There's a blog on the Pro Tools site that actually, in your getting started guide, there's actually a menu in there that tells you how to disable the functions from the Mac. That way you can have them back as Pro Tools functions. And I just got to remember where that site is. Let me see. Pro Tools Quick Keys. Mac OS X. Just give me a second. I might be able to find hidden trick, creating your own, cut up, give it arrow. So basically, the Mac operating system has. Here we go. So this will give you a quick explanation for the quick keys that are being hijacked by your Mac, and it'll allow you to go back in and disable them via your Mac. That way you can have them back for Pro Tools. Cool. So hopefully that gives you a better idea. Well, listen, guys, lightning is starting to come down pretty heavy in my area. Does anybody have any last minute questions before we resume for the evening? Yeah, it's getting pretty crazy over here. The thunder is pretty loud. Well, listen, guys, I appreciate you taking the time to come hang out with me tonight, and I hope you've learned some things inside of Pro Tools, and I hope you guys are having a good time in this class. In the event you guys have any questions that you don't want to post here in this forum, that's fine. Make sure you get in touch with me, though. Make sure you hit me up on iChat. Make sure you hit me up in an email, and you're more than welcome to call me as well. Tomorrow I'll start on your PTA2 grading, so some of you will start to see those. Some of you have probably already started seeing those grades. I just haven't got them all taken care of yet. They will be done entirely before your next assignment's due, but in the event that, God forbid, something happens to me and I do get struck by lightning, understand that the videos, oh, that was close. The videos that are posted in the assignment themselves will actually show you every single step that we're asking you to do. So, if you're not understanding something, watch those videos. We are basically showing you how to do each step before you have to submit it. So, good luck with your assignments, guys. I appreciate you coming out and hanging out. Yeah, it was pretty loud. Thanks, guys. Take care. We'll see you back next week. Have a good week.